figure it out. And so I started writing for them and really fell in love with it. And for me personally, I write for a lot of arts organizations, which, lends itself very well to sort of what I do. But I really see grant writing as something that is just, it's a catalyst to sort of move people forward in the, when businesses do well, everybody does well. And similarly, when nonprofits are able to actually fund and do the things that they want to go do in the world, like the world is a better place. And so for me, that's always been sort of the main catalyst. Like I just get very excited being able to give people money because it just, it helps them do what they were put on the earth to do. So yeah, that's my educational background. Now I run a grant writing agency. So it's not just me. I have a team of 8 other grant writers. And so all of us have different skills, different backgrounds. And so we all sort of work together. And I mean, I oversee them all, but they all have very specific skills. And so I try to match people as best as I can with people who match that sort of skill set. And who are able to really to help them. So I have someone who is a book publisher. So she's amazing because she is like the editing wizard. So any of those grants before they go out, like she will edit them. And then I also have, people on the team who have experience working in the nonprofit sector, and then also just other small business owners and people who have had experience in for-profit as well.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you're literally changing the world one grant at a time.
That's what I hope to do. Yeah, I mean, it does. It's, grant writing feels like I think to a lot of people, including like my parents, don't even really know what goes into it. Like it feels very mysterious, but I try so hard to not make it mysterious. Like I feel like people, and a lot of what I do as well is I try to like educate my clients and sort of help them to see how they can also do this themselves in some ways, because I don't really think that it needs to be as, I don't know, mysterious or like scary as it really is. A lot of it is really just selling yourself in a way. Like you just have to sort of market what you do, and you just talk about how what you do is unique and what your impact is on those around you. So I try to sort of help people also narrow down specifically those elements.
That's great. Okay, we can speak more about the specifics and the grants or whatever. I'm really interested in hearing how you just started your business in 2020 when COVID happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you've grown that into an agency where you actually have employees or what have you.
Yeah.
Do you kind
Yeah.
of speak on that transition? Because that's pretty impressive within itself.
Yeah. So when 2020 happened, all of my singing work went away. I had like a really good season lined up that I had worked really hard for, of course, and it just disappeared and it wasn't ever rescheduled. And a lot of my friends were in the same place. The arts were very obviously hard hit, and it just was not either rescheduled at a time people couldn't do it or, anything like that. So basically, because of that, I was home. I like went to Seattle. I didn't know what was happening. Obviously, the world was falling apart in front of me. So but I was still finishing my master's. So I was still sort of in school and I was in sort of like that environment. But for me, I guess it was sort of happenstance in a way, but I was always trying to find a way to really impact other people. And that's what I always wanted to do, of course, because with anthropology, I mean, so much of it is learning, obviously, about like other humans and studying them in a way. But I always wanted to sort of find a way to connect that with what I was doing music wise. But in some ways, the only way to do that was like ethnomusicology, like you study like music. And I was like, but I want to do something else. So it was really a weird and good sort of branch of using the writing knowledge and then sort of utilizing it with I guess being a performer, you kind of have to learn how to do a lot of different things in order to survive. And so, and music education in general is very multifaceted. You have to learn a lot of different random things. So yeah, but I mean, I technically, yeah, I started in 2020. And then when in 2020 though, I mean, I will say the grant market exploded. And there's a lot more grants now than I think there was pre-COVID. Um, Granted, I was not so active pre-COVID, be able to track it myself, but I would say from the, other people that I've talked to, they've all said that, now there are more grants than previously, because people want to fund people starting businesses or starting nonprofits or expanding their nonprofits. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of a good time actually, but yeah, I think a lot of it was just all of that music stuff being stripped away and then me having nothing else to do. Yeah.
So just speak kind of on that. How did that transition work of going from zero to where you at now? Because I mean, as we can see, you've been doing pretty well. Looks like your business is thriving, just
Yeah.
what did that look like in such a short 2-year time frame?
Um, well, I started just having like I started with just sort of a very small pool of clients that were like my friends essentially, because they were starting their nonprofits and I was just helping them. Um, Through that, I obviously learned a lot about how grants worked, and sort of when I did my anthropology degree, we did write grants, but they were research grants. But when I did regular grants, they were the same elements.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, I mean, really, I just started small and started slow and then sort of started to build up from there. And I had a lot of people who were also artists who were like, I really want to learn how to do this, because they were like, I just like want to learn how to fundraise on my own. I think that's also just something that people need. And I know a lot of artists who either have a nonprofit or they are basically self-producing their own work, so they need finances obviously to do that. Um, so I really just started small.
Think that- Would you say that it grew more so from referral, organic based, or like online
Mm,
social media marketing?
Um, I would say I would say both. I think now there's a little bit more referral, but I still do quite a bit of marketing. I think that in order to get sort of and it's bumped up obviously since I have the agency, because it's not just me. I have to like really, work to get clients for my um team as well and sort of organize all of that. I don't do it all myself. I have an assistant who's like incredible, but yeah, I mean, that's really, I think it's half and half. You have to advertise yourself in a lot of ways. And I think I still am not the best at this. Like, I don't intentionally go out of my way to post what I do most of the time. Um, but it's very important. I have a business coach. She's always telling me, she's like, you need to like tell people what you do. I'm like, I just don't, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to, but you can't make an impact on the world though if you don't say what you do. And that's another thing too that's, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, absolutely. With you want to have a big impact, you gotta be service to many or what have you. So how about this? Let's speak, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people they're familiar with grants or what have you. Some people have tried to write their own grants unsuccessfully. Maybe speak on the importance of like the benefits of partnering up with your agency versus just trying to wing it and figure it out on their own.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest benefits obviously is you have somebody who can navigate the system for you. Like, we know where to look and we know how to break down what you do into keywords, whether it's, we do everything. I should say, like, we do full service. It's like the research elements. I edit sometimes people's existing materials, or I'll like go through applications that they might have sent in the past and then sort of utilize that to create new materials. But yeah, it's really just bringing those elements of, I guess, just kind of knowing where to look, but then also knowing what funders want. I talk to funders pretty often. And for one of my clients in particular, I have to like keep funders like, I have to go to meetings and things like that. And um, I take notes, but I still am there and I am very much active in learning about what they want to sort of see from people's applications, what they really want to know. And I think when you look at sort of grant requirements, it can be very overwhelming because it looks like a lot. Particularly if they say like, oh, we really want to highlight this year this specific thing. Like, I don't know how to bring that out in my application. So a lot of it is just the sort of language of the writing and just the actual finding grants that you really do qualify for in a way that is they're very specific grants. You're applying to things that you have a higher chance of receiving. Um, yeah, and also just obviously, basic like editing and just somebody who can kind of take a second look at things.
Gotcha.
Just so that you have, yeah.
Understood, understood. Have this just popped up in my mind. Have you seen people get approved for multiple grants? That is possible, huh?
Yes, yeah, you can stack as many as you want. There's no limit to, well, I should say I don't believe, like, I've never seen a grant have a limit. I've never had them say like you cannot receive funding. The only time that that ever happens is if you have, for example, I'll give like a general example. New York State had New York State Council on the Arts. So they provided like arts funding.
Mhm.
And some smaller organizations, so say Brooklyn Arts Fund, took money from the New York State Council on the Arts and distributed it as Brooklyn Arts Fund. So we couldn't apply for both, if that makes sense. Like you had to pick, so you're
Yeah,
taking from the same pool of money. So that's the only time that that would happen, and it's very industry specific. So you would be able to tell if it was like they say on the website.
understood, understood. Okay, now let's go to the main question. I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to know like the success rate, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Um, so I pull from multiple pools, whether that's from obviously grants. In terms of grants, there's foundations, there's federal grants, there's private grants, there's just a lot of different things. And then there's also corporate sponsorships. Sometimes corporations do give things in the way of grants, like they'll call it grants. I think Amazon has one right now, but there's like, they call it grants, but you can also apply for corporate sponsorships or corporate giving from a corporation. And there's a lot of them, like Wells Fargo randomly is like the #1 in the country for giving out corporate grants or corporate sponsorships. And typically all you have to do is submit a letter of inquiry, and sometimes that's it. And they will just send you the money. But in terms of, for me, I pull from multiple sources. If something is unsuccessful, I always, #1, get feedback because I want to make sure that like it's, most of the time, I will say if something's been unsuccessful, it has nothing to do with the grant itself. It has everything to do with they just like chose someone else because they had some random thing that they wanted that person. It's typically it's very random, which is unfortunate because it's hard to kind of get a good sense of like the market and what you should be looking at. But I will say that I've always been able to find people some sort of money, and I make it I make it like my mission to like make sure that people are not walking away with like nothing. Um, I also, I don't know, with grant writers, it's hard to know because people do the way that they like get compensated, but also just the way that they sort of structure what they do is different for everybody. I always make sure that my clients have deliverables. Like I want them to have a letter of inquiry that they can have, that they can use whenever these like corporate things come up and they see it. All they need to do is submit that letter and they already have it. So I want to make sure that people have that stuff so that they just, and I draft like a grant proposal for them in all of my packages. I just think that's really important to have. So that educational element is very important to me. But yeah, I've always had, people have never, I will say, walked away empty-handed. I just try really hard to make sure that there's something happening. Sometimes it's not the first thing that we apply for, and that's okay. Um, it's not always a linear process. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but once you get that like first grant, typically more and more will continue to come to you. It's just sometimes it's hard to get that first one because you're not quote established. It's very frustrating to see the same people keep getting funded and funded over and over.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it will happen.
That's good news. I didn't even know that. Like it was so many different pools that you're actually going through with the corporate. And I mean, that's the benefits of having an actual professional grant writer as well, I guess, because you just don't know what you don't know in a sense.
Yeah. And like I know some people just lose their minds trying to look at grants all day, and that I understand. I personally find it very fun, but I know that that's like not common. So, that's another thing that I think is, yeah.
Gotcha. Sound like you kind of made it. It's like the arts of grants. That's kind of what was going through my mind. You made an
Yeah,
art of it.
I guess get an artist, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So how about we just speak on where we at here? Close to 30. About the future. What do you have planned for the future with your business, with your impact, with the industry or what have you, with the group as well, which is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think I'm good in terms of like the team. I added people very fast, and I think I'm good right now with like my my 9 grant writers and my like 1 assistant. Like I think I'm good. But in terms of, I want to continue to, it was double-sided, I guess, when I started the business. It was very much, I wanted to both educate people on how to write grants and sort of take their writing skills and teach them the things that I have learned. And then also I wanted to, at the same time, take help people in this the exact same, help my clients and be able to bring my clients the benefit of having a team of people who have multiple different levels of expertise. They're not levels of expertise, there's different areas of expertise. So, if somebody comes to me and they have like a science or medical based, like I have somebody who has that experience. I have a social worker on my team as well. So she does a lot of the mental health stuff. And it's just things that I think it's really important to have sort of multiple areas of expertise within the group. And we also, we all talk to each other. Like it's very interactive. For me, it's been great because it's so nice to have people to talk to and not just be like on your computer all day on grants.gov, like losing your mind. But I think, yeah, so really I want to sort of keep the things relatively in terms of team. I obviously want to keep it very stable, but my overall goal would be to just continue to diversify what we do. I would love to add courses at some point. I just have not had like the time, but I would love to add something like that to where people can utilize it in order to learn about different types of funding, just learn the basics. I think it's really important. And I think I just want people to be able to feel empowered in order to do this stuff. Because again, it's just, I think that if this is like maybe very like very woo-woo for a lot of people, but I just personally, I feel like if you desire it, that means it's for you. Anything that you desire, I think there's a reason why you have those desires. And so I try to sort of practice what I preach in that way, and help my clients in multiple different ways. So I think with us too, all of us are very communicative, and we're all sort of on the younger side, I will say, but I think that brings like a nice energy to the business. And yeah, because I know, there are a lot of grant writers who are just sort of, I don't think people know what grant writers are or do because they don't talk about it much. They're very like, I don't know what they're like in their basements. I don't know, like, honestly, what a lot of grant writers do. So
I mean, to be honest with you, up until like a few years ago, very recently, every time I heard someone speak about a grant writer, like, I know a grant writer, it's like, oh my God, that's rare. It's like
yeah,
only one, it's not that many grant writers that exist on earth.
yeah. And it's like they're like whispering, like this person has like all the secrets of like, so I think that's really my main thing. And with this group in particular, I have had a lot of people reach out to me, and it's really cool because there are just so many amazing people doing a lot of different things, and I love the diverse element of the group. I like working with a mixture of for-profit and nonprofit. I know some grant writers only work with nonprofits, but I think that, no matter what, I mean, I'm technically a for-profit business. Like, I understand, the elements of both, and I think that both are equally valuable and equally important. And I think, small businesses obviously have a lot of, like, it's hard. It's hard to sort of get things going. And it can be really, you have really good days and really bad days and really, really bad days. And it's, I mean, I know it because that's what I do as well. So it's, I think having, I guess, someone also who kind of relates to being a small business owner and having that, also is beneficial.
What would you say to some of the people from the group who are reaching out? Like, just
Yeah.
probably, you know, just some stuff they should be looking out for
I
before they
think,
reach out to
I mean,
you.
I've pointed a few people to your resources because I think that you actually have posted quite a few that are very comprehensive. Um, it's sometimes, when you're looking at grant deadlines, if something has already passed, check again and just make a note that you're going to check it the next year, because a lot of them do come out every single year. I think right now is a good time to sit down for like a weekend and do like a little bit of like a development calendar.
Mhm.
Just try to plan out your year as much as possible, put deadlines in for each month. Um, or I guess, make a marker each month of like, I'm going to look for these grants again and see if they're back out. Because I think planning is obviously important. And I think that, when it's, you just have to be kind of in that like grant space sometimes. So once you kind of get yourself there, do all your planning, and then you'll feel a lot better because you'll have obviously deadlines and things to work towards. But I think if the biggest thing is being consistent, because if you are scattered with it, it's hard because you could find a grant that's perfect and it's due the next day and you're like, I don't know what to do. And I will say grant writers are also not miracle workers. I can only work so fast. Like, my team can only work so fast. It can be really difficult to get things done sometimes if it's very rushed, because obviously that affects like the writing process. Like it just, so yeah, I would say making a plan, I think, for fundraising is really important. And if, just start by looking at the resources, like even the resources in the group. And then from there, the SBA, for example, like a lot of people don't know that there are local people you can go to in person, chat with them, and they'll tell you about grant opportunities you can apply for within your local area. I think it's from the SBA, but I don't know. And I mean, I didn't know that until relatively recently, because the SBA, historically has given grants very rarely, but during COVID, they started giving more. And now they're back on loans again. And I think they'll probably, I'm sure it just depends on government money that they get. But but yeah, I would say kind of try to find multiple funding sources. So my biggest thing is like look at, I mean, there's websites for this. Grant Watch is a really good one. It's $200 a year, I want to say. I don't, you might be able to get like a quarterly or like a month, maybe even, and then you can just like get it all done in that one period of time. But um, Grant Watch is not the best for forecasted grants. Like it's very much like the current things that are available, but they do send you summary emails, which is really nice, based on your like business or organization and your state. So that is nice. They give you like a weekly summary. Another, I mean, obviously there's grants.gov, which can be very overwhelming. Really trying to figure out too what you do and the keywords, which can be, like it doesn't have to be too difficult, but just, like when you are searching for grants and you're a small business, for example, make sure that you check that the recipient of the grant is a small business so that you don't get nonprofit grants and you get very excited and then you realize it's a nonprofit grant. And so I would say I'm totally just like going on, but I think the biggest thing is just come up with the plan and just try to stick to it, as best as possible. But I think looking up those big funders and looking up, just go down a rabbit hole for like, and it is a rabbit hole. You will find yourself in all sorts of crazy things. I mean, earlier today I was looking through the group and I looked at the grant Bible on I think it's the grants 101 document. There was something you had shared. And it was like a link. There's also a spreadsheet, which I think is the grant Bible, right? Like it's like this huge Google Sheets. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even know this existed. Like who made this? So there are a lot of things that you can find, through somebody to, that are just out there. And I mean, everyone here is obviously lucky because they have this group and there's like people that, post these things. But, and even I sometimes like there are grants posted that I didn't know were out there. So, it's nice to kind of find all of those things. But yeah, I think just try to come up with a plan as best as possible, but don't obviously go, well, you could go hard. You could really like do something, I think there's something to be said about getting a lot of funding all at once that feels really good, but is it like super sustainable? It's a big question mark. But I would say, yeah, use your resources, use the people. I mean, that SBA thing in particular is like very important, I think. Just utilizing that and just, yeah, using your resources. I mean, obviously, for me, we do a lot of research, and researching is actually one of my favorite things to do. So, I mean, I'm always happy to help, obviously, with the research element, even if you just want to sit down and chat it out. I'm happy to kind of build out, a calendar of resources. But I think most grant writers would be happy to do that research element.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of was the ideology around the group, was just to have a place, so you're not scattered. We kind of gave some resources where people can lock in on, but I think still a lot of people, would like that other hands-on, from actual professional walking them through the process. Do you want to speak to the group about the special that you had exclusively for this month of August?
Yeah, so for the rest of the month, or I guess you could book it in September, but it would just have to be like scheduled this month, I suppose. But I typically offer for a consultation hour. I guess it's not a consultation, it's more of like a just a one-on-one like session. Consultations are free, I should say. You can have a consultation with my assistant any day of the week, if you want, but and she can walk you through all the services. But in terms of this month, I made my 90-minute one-on-one sessions where literally I will answer any questions you have. I will do whatever you want in that 90 minutes. And then also we can obviously, meet again at some point, but I will help you with whatever it is that you need. give you resources afterwards, follow up with you, make sure that you have what you need in order to kind of get what it is that you wanted to get out of that time. I like to hold people very accountable for doing things. So you will have a little bit of that like accountability factor. And yeah, and you get a recording of it, of course. And so typically I charge 600 for that, but for this month it's 333 because magic numbers, obviously, it's very important. So yeah, that's my sort of August special. And it's only for this group because I only made that package for this group actually. So I don't offer that normally.
Oh, that's dope. Y'all put some fire chats and emoji for that, get that going. That's
Because I
exclusive.
know it's just sometimes getting started is the hardest part. And I know how expensive it can be to hire a grant writer. And so I'm always happy to sort of find a way to try and yeah, make that as sort of, I guess, make myself as accessible as possible.
You know what?
Within the realm, obviously, of
Speak on that briefly, just on some of the other grant industry. What do they charge typically?
so yeah, so if you Google it, it says anywhere from I think $40 to $200 per hour is typically what you're going to find for hourly work. Some applications, like if you're doing a foundation application, those can take 20 to 40 hours. So you're looking at quite a bit of money, especially if they're charging in that like $200 range. I don't charge hourly. I charge a flat fee, which is kind of people either charge hourly or a flat fee. And sometimes I do get people who ask about commission, and that's like a big question. My dad was even like, do you get paid on commission? There is people do it. I will say there are probably grant writers who do it. I do not, because it is in like the Association of Fundraising Professionals and then also the American Association of Grant Writers, if I could speak. They both say in the ethics, like you cannot accept commission. And the reason, is truly because it's not, I mean, number one, grants take a long time, it's like a long process, but also because if a funder finds out that you utilize the grant money to pay the grant writer, they will take the money back. So it's also like a double-edged sword where you're like, and you don't want that necessarily on your like grant records. It wouldn't really be beneficial. So yeah, but I guess anywhere technically from like, I've seen a lot of different rates, and it depends too, like where people live and stuff, but yeah, and I know a lot of people do this, but I do like offer payment plans, obviously, like you can break it up however you want, as long as you tell me how you want to do it. And we can always work something out if that's the most helpful, because obviously, I know as well, like right now, because I have an agency, and I'm going from Marissa Moultrie as like an individual to Manhattan grant writers, like I just had to hire someone to develop like my logo and my branding, and I like almost cried when she told me how much it was. But like you have to kind of, it's obviously with her too, like I'm on a payment plan, but like I understand the benefits of that. So yeah, we try to make it as budgetable as possible, and I think not charging hourly also helps with that, because people know exactly what it is that they pay. So
Dope. That's dope. I think this has been super helpful for a lot of people. I'm interested in hearing more about the course. When do you plan on coming up with that course, or if you can get enough free time to do it sometime
it's
soon?
really the free time, but I think that I really want to start working on it once my website's done, because I think having just like a basics would be amazing to just, I know myself personally, like I can read things, but I do a lot better listening to people talk about it and then showing me. So I think, yeah, I would love to have the course done like by 2023. That would be like the ideal. So I don't know, maybe you all will motivate me to get it done faster. We'll see. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, this has been amazing. So guys, there she is. You can see that you can actually see her and touch her. She's real. She's friendly. She's helpful. Definitely reach out to her for all of your grant needs, questions, concerns, help, assistance, research. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I know
Yeah.
you're a super busy lady, so I'm excited to have you a part of the group. I'm excited, to see the help that you're about to do for everybody. It's really going to help a lot of people level up, especially right now during this time, what's going on in the economy,
Yeah.
So that was a
Mhm.
whole concept of the group. Everyone's fighting against inflation, recession, and this right here is a very essential piece in what we have going on in this network as far as grants, being able to help people become their own bosses and get the funding so they can help other people as well. So yeah, super appreciative of you, having you in the group for this call, and excited for what we're about to do for the future as well. So yeah, thank you guys for joining. We'll be back Wednesday for Wealthy Women Wednesday. Guys, definitely reach out to Marissa for any needs, and you guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.